Why did you take my light? The darkness will not
Why did you take my light? The darkness will not survive.
Why did you take my light? The darkness will not Why did you take my light? The darkness will not survive. light.